Hey everybody, it's Tripl-L coming in to talk about My Hero Academia chapter 369, a very late review. So late that, if Hero Academia was happening this week, it would be coming out tomorrow, but it's a late review. Anyway, sorry for being late. I was very busy and I was also very sick. My voice is still a little bit affected, but here we are for Hero Academia. Very excited to talk about a chapter. I personally really enjoyed it. I don't think there's like that much that's technically wrong with it. Maybe you could say like, oh, we didn't get to do a lot. But I mean, like, in the grand scheme of like Shonen Jump series, this is still pretty good. But yeah, I don't think there's anything that I found technically bad. There were some lines in the spoilers that I thought didn't make sense, but like everything about those lines was corrected in the official translation, or like it was proven false. Like one of the big things here for the guys who are on live stream that you'll probably remember is a chain of events across the ages. It's not a chain of events across the span of a single year, right? So it's just stuff like that. Overall, I think it was a technically strong chapter. I do think the chapter is a little bit confusing to read because you need to take some time to figure out the narration and the flashbacks. You have to figure out what's going where. That takes a little bit of mental dexterity, just making sure you align the right words to everything. And then for me, like, I think the most interesting thing that I want to talk about is honestly just the power, and also a very unique translation issue. If you were on the live stream, you probably already know what I'm going to talk about. But let's go into the power, and before we get into it further, I want to say like thanks to Jason Thomas, because having a conversation with him helped me further flesh this situation out when it came to gear shift. So you guys know me, I like power logic. One of the most interesting parts of this chapter is page 6 to 7 on the Viz Media translation, when you have the explanation for what gear shift does, and you have the line, gear shift adjusts speed without abiding by the laws of inertia. Now, this was really interesting, because like, what does this actually mean? Well, there's a few things. When I first looked at this line, what I thought that to mean is gear shift doesn't observe the consequences of deceleration. Imagine what happens when you are in a car, that car hits something, it suddenly stops, and you don't have a seatbelt on. You fly out of the car because you still have a velocity vector applied to you. You are an independent system, I think. I think is the right terminology, right? That force is still acting on you. And like people say, what kills people is the sudden stop. What happens here, Izuku's not doing a sudden stop, but the deceleration from speed of sound down to low gear, that's the big thing. In a normal situation, and like you can also call up like the Gwen Stacy moment in Spider-Man, in a normal situation, doing deceleration the way that Izuku did would have destroyed his body. Like this is what he's ignoring. It's specifically the consequence of this kind of deceleration. When you decelerate, there's usually a deceleration period as well. It's pretty much like instead of doing a linear deceleration, it's pretty much a step function for those that know mathematics and step functions. It's like you're going at one speed, and all of a sudden, in like the span of an infinitely small millisecond, infinitely small portion of time, heck, it probably happens in the exact same moment if you can actually like wrap your head around that. You go from like say 100 to 20, right? That is the most dangerous thing your body could ever go through, because the force that would be exerted on your body at that point would probably demolish you. Now, what Jason contributed was that he pointed out, if you're ignoring the laws of inertia, then that means that the person's mass must be 0 or must be approaching 0. And when I say approaching 0, I mean 0.00000000001, for example, an infinitely small number. He pointed that out, and I initially disregarded that, but he was very correct. He was very correct to continue on that point. He is very correct. If you're ignoring the laws of inertia, to some degree, you must be accepting that this person no longer has mass because of the things that are being done. So ultimately, what's going on here with this power, the overall effect that you have to be looking at is specifically the fact that Izuku is ignoring the forces that would be acting on his body in this moment of switching speed. And we were able to find like a nice Wikipedia article about like inertia dampening and all that kind of stuff. And what we found on that article is pretty much this idea is used a lot in science fiction. It's the idea that justifies things like light speed travel and warp speed travel. It's pretty much things that justify a ship coming to a sudden stop and no one flying out of the spaceship. So the idea has roots in science fiction, you know, maybe Horikoshi like kind of just sampled the idea. Given that it's so prevalent, it wouldn't be that hard. When it comes to Hero Academia, what we ultimately are landing on is the problem with the mass. There is no way that Izuku's mass is going down to 0. It doesn't work like that. He's exerting way too much force. It doesn't matter how large your force is when you are infinitely small in terms of your mass. Like, that's going to round out to near 0. So the best read on this whole situation with the laws of inertia is to pick and choose certain elements the way that the science fiction writers would pick and choose, keep the mass, and then just nullify the effects of the forces when Izuku's doing the sudden stops and the sudden decelerations and sudden accelerations. That's probably how you have to go about doing it. Now, the reason why it's worth knowing where exactly the problems are, or like what exactly is being ignored, is because the second user is saying that after 5 minutes, that's it. It's pretty much game over. Like, the world might die. Now, mind you, he might be overhyping it because the author has a reason to overhype things. He wants to overhype things because it makes things more exciting. But this might be some kind of there might be a recontextualization that happens later to say like, oh, you know, like he was saying like, oh yeah, the world's gonna be over, but the world's gonna be over because if they don't fight him in 5 minutes, then Izuku's gonna be vulnerable for 5 minutes later because of a negative side effect, and that's why the world will pretty much die. It's because Izuku will be likely killed in that next 5 minutes that happens whenever the side effect comes in. So that's what you gotta keep in mind. In terms of what's going on here, given that Izuku is ignoring the laws of inertia right now, it's one of the possibilities is just all the force that he was ignoring earlier just comes back and hits him harder here. The reason why this particular debuff would work, one, the science or like the poetic nature to this justifies that, okay, yeah, you know, what's been ignored comes back. And then Izuku in particular doesn't care about getting hurt. So he's probably the person best suited to take on this particular disability, that being all the forces coming and destroying your body all at once. His body's already taking so much punishment that he probably has ways to mitigate it. So everything is kind of set up here for something really good. Of course, if the author does something completely different, that would be awesome. But ultimately, when it comes to that abiding by the laws of inertia, I think it would be just safe to say that this is a pick and choose situation. You're keeping the mass. You're ignoring the natural ramifications of playing around with speed at this scale. All right. So that's one of the very interesting points for the chapter. I had a lot of fun with that. I absolutely love talking about it. I don't care how right or wrong anyone was on this particular topic. I always love talking about Horikoshi's very bad application of science. And look, I don't care. I don't care what you say about Horikoshi. He called clumps. He called like Bakugo's situation clumps. Clumps of sweat. Clumps of nitroglycerin going back into the bloodstream. Bro, I don't care. Like, Horikoshi's application of science is not in the champions of shonen manga, alright? But no disrespect to that either. Like, some people are worse. Like, actually, you know, we make fun of Horikoshi, but like there's people that are worse. And Horikoshi knows to not go in too deep. Which actually is like the other like sad part, is that I would love for this to be more fleshed out, but he knows what he's good at, so he won't do it because it's actually better for him to not do it. Like, the more fleshed out things become, the greater the degree of scrutiny an author opens themselves up to. So they need more of these kind of like vague areas. You don't want more clump situations. Now, one of the best parts about this chapter is the unique translation problem that occurs on page 8 to 9 and 10 to 11, and I love whenever I get to see this. Let me tell you, if there was a more poetic series where wordplay matters more, if they had done what Hero Academia did when it came to translating quirks, it would have been a big problem, because the majority of that of this supposed poetic series would have been missed on English readers. And mind you, when it comes to English readers, you see this sometimes when jokes and idioms that are unique to the Japanese language don't really translate over into English, and then like the translator have to do a full-on localization, not just a translation. So, you know, there's always interesting things that happen, but for Hero Academia, the problem here is the line, people call them quirks. This does not logically follow in any world, but it's a trap that the translators have pretty much put themselves into. So what you have to remember here is that quirk is not the translation for the powers that people wield in Hero Academia. Quirk is a negatively charged word. When you call someone quirky, that is not on the positive side of the spectrum. The original translation for the powers is individuality. Quirk is something that a fan group, I think it was Fallen Angels, came up with, and that the official people ultimately adopted into the official translation. When you come into page 8 and 9, you have a situation. Our meta abilities were never what you should have been wary of. Rather, you should fear the reason why someone chooses to use their gifts. Their power resides within an individual's intent. Then you go into the next page. This is why people call them individualities, not quirks. So what you're seeing here is that the agreement between the statements, it ain't reaching there because of the way that individualities is translated into quirks, and the lead into individualities comes specifically from within an individual's intent. And individuality does not have the negative charge that quirks has, because individuality, that's what makes you you. Your individuality is what makes you a sentient person. Your quirk is what makes you different than other people, and it's usually applied, oh, that guy's really quirky. Right? You don't say, oh, that guy's a real individual, right? Like complete different feel to those words. So I absolutely love this, because this is just one of those very interesting times when you get to see where translation kind of falls apart and a deeper meaning is ultimately missed. The agreement between these words, this is not how things follow through. If this happened in a less known story or in a fan fiction, or you had this kind of you had this premise and the conclusion, people would call it, oh, that doesn't necessarily make sense. Like the wordplay did not fully land there. But this is a very unique problem that could only happen in Hero Academia. It doesn't really matter in the long run, because like you kind of understand it at the end of the day, because quirk is close enough to individuality, but like let's not play around. Individuality is a fundamentally stronger word than quirk is. Quirk is a weird word. It points more towards strangeness and out of placeness. It points more to a sense of everyone in the world is this particular way, and this person is just kind of different, and it's usually played to ostracize people or something like that. All right. So we go back into the page-by-page walkthrough. Let's start it proper and let's get through it. I'm 12 minutes in, but you know what? I love those 12 minutes. There's a few little details in the chapter, I think, as well, that's worth pointing out. Okay, so we're on page 1. And we're seeing a section of the flashback of the moment that the second user most likely died. We get to see some interesting stuff here. First, I want to point out that Horikoshi, for whatever reason, he does not like showing All For One's face. We've graduated from seeing the bottom of All For One's face to now only seeing the top, even though we've seen the full face. So what is Horikoshi trying to do here, hiding this guy's face? You realize that Horikoshi gets a lot of value over obscuring details about All For One for whatever reason. This just seems to be like, I think it's just a little bit of a bias that he has here. The big question here is, what would the author be trying to say by hiding the man's face? Okay, is he trying to say like, oh, you guys, you don't know if he's smiling or if he's angry. Like, you don't know if All For One feels emotions. Like, guys, what if I told you All For One's actually smiling here? Adhering to Hawks' read on All For One about the man always smiles. Oh, whoa, he's smiling when his brother most likely died. Ooh, wow. Or like, oh no, he's actually very angry. He's so angry. And it's like, bro, like, we know that All For One gets angry, man. We've seen it before. The man gets angry. So it's interesting that he plays this as something that needs to be obscured. Like, what would be the most surprising thing in this situation? I don't know, because like either way it kind of works. If you say he's smiling, it's like, okay, you're adhering to Hawks' interpretation of him, but like Hawks' interpretation is wrong because Hawks doesn't really know the guy. And then if he's angry, then it's just like, well, yeah, because he's obsessed with his brother. He is pretty angry. He's got a weird relationship. He has to figure that stuff out. So you know, this is one of those points where it's like, what do I bet on? Is he smiling or is he angry? The smile would be like the shock factor, depending on where you're it depends on where you're biased on. I guess I'll just put angry. Like, you know what? The simplest answer is sometimes the correct answer. Maybe Horikoshi thinks that readers believe Hawks and they think he's smiling, but yeah, man, like, I'll say angry. I don't know if he's ever going to reveal this. It's just like, this is kind of ridiculous. It's funny. It's just revealing Horikoshi's style here with All For One. Now, looking at this thing, the narration itself is happening in present time, and it's being juxtaposed against images from the past. We see this. I can't believe that it's a bullet. I would assume that it's some kind of blade on a stick, or I guess blade on a nub. So it seemed to have been going very slowly earlier. I wonder what speed low gear is, in all honesty. It should be much slower than the current low gear. But anyway, it's going slowly. You can see that there's a little bit of movement there, and then it goes faster again, saying pretty much, oh yeah, this thing is going, it's messing with the laws of physics. Okay, we go into page 2 and 3. We see the whole thing is only meant to work on small objects. The thing looks very large. All For One seems to have like some kind of either force field or gravity power. You can see some energy flowing from his fingers. Very interesting. You have All For One talking about how like this guy wasn't that important. We see a very interesting panel here, which I assume is the One For All flame metaphor. Don't know what that necessarily means, other than maybe like the power has already been transferred. I hope we get to see the full flashback because I want the context. And we go back into regular time. You have All For One asking how can he see the ghost of One For All. All For One has fought them before, so he should know that the ghost still exists. He must be surprised that they are appearing outside of Izuku's body, because that is a thing to be reasonably surprised by. This was a guy who before that was being haunted maybe on the inside by these ghosts. We know that he's been haunted by the vestiges before, so maybe that's where his bias is coming in on. Then we have Izuku's his panel here, and it looks to me, given the bend that you're seeing on the trail following Izuku's hand, Izuku switched gears just now. And then we go into the page 4 and 5 explanation for gear shift. So much like the other meta abilities, gear shift's strength grew alongside One For All's. Its scope broadened. This is very important. The scope broadened, allowing it to apply to more diverse targets and function right down to the cellular level. Then there's the pure simple might built up within One For All. Those two powers come together. So pretty much what he's saying is just like the natural, just imagine what happens when you have a giant mass of muscle, and now that giant mass of muscle is moving at the speed of sound, or like 4 times the speed of sound, right? Yeah, it's gonna hurt. It's gonna hurt really hardcore, right? It's gonna be super bad. The thing about it can warp the very laws of reality indicates that there's more going on that maybe we cannot see here very well. One of the worst things about dealing with a movement-based power is that it's stuck in a medium where showing movement is very, very hard. Like it's up to interpretation what exactly is going on here, right? Now, coming back to this thing, the scope broadening means it's being applied to like Shigaraki and Izuku, so not necessarily small objects, so that's where the broadening comes in. On this thing, what else can I say? I'll mention a commenter, Tai. Tai asked, well, because the cellular level kind of makes you think about it, is it possible that gear shift would speed up regeneration? Or like it would allow for a healing factor? Now, it really depends on this whole thing about the scope broadening, because this right now is a power that works entirely within kinematics. This is not a power that makes something exist faster. This is a power that makes something move faster. Let's break it down further into the physics. You can move in your XYZ dimension, right? This power is applying a speed. You're gaining a vector. Maybe you're going into the Z, maybe you're going into Y, maybe you're going in the X. Moving faster does not translate into healing faster. Because when you're changing the rate of healing, you're not changing the rate at which something moves. You're changing the rate at which something exists. So when it comes to healing, well, okay, you're changing, metabolism. You're changing the rate at which your red blood cells die. That's a little bit different than just applying movement. Now, we went over to another series, a certain magical index, because a certain magical index is very verbose when it comes to very scientific-based powers. And we just went over there to see if there was any power that author had thought of. And, there is a way to, like, kind of argue for regeneration. It requires applying movement to your tissue in such a way that your tissue, like, presses together. because you can kind of see it, right? Like if you move a tissue in the negative X and one piece of tissue in the positive X, they're going to come together, obviously, and you can close up a wound. But it again relies on movement. So the problem there is when it comes down to regeneration, you're looking at a very different kind of speed as opposed to kinematic or like physical based speed. So at the moment in time, without knowing the scale of the broadening that's happened to the scope, we can't really say whether or not regeneration is there. It's on Horikoshi to come up with like a really nice, beautiful kind of explanation for that, or a poetic kind of explanation. Really, though, with the governing of the laws of reality, like heck man, the man can just go into flat out Izuku's messing with the passage of time on his body because he's moving faster than the speed of light. If he goes there, then whatever. I mean, like if you're gonna go into like theoretical physics, 100% do it. Right now, like what we're seeing here in terms of the panel with the distortion of reality, like if I look at that panel with distortion of reality, the first thing I'm thinking about is like gravity is being distorted, but I don't think gravity is being distorted actually. So we'll have to see this. So we'll have to wait and see if this power continues to just do incredible things. Now, in terms of reality being distorted, I don't know how he did this like at the office, but you have the on page 5 you have the start of the smash coming in after the quintuple Detroit smash, and you have it not continuing to the next page like from left to right. You have it continuing from the top to the bottom. That's very unnatural. Like if you're flipping the pages, you're not going to see a smash at the bottom continue from the top of the next page. That's very irregular. So maybe that's an expression of distorting reality right there. I don't fully understand what that means, other than actually no, wait, you know what, because the quintuple happens, when you look at the smash is coming like Izuku has already moved so much when the sound of the smash is occurring. Yeah, actually I think that's the read. That's 100% the read. So the quintuple smash, when the destruction happens, like on this page 5, imagine that being silent. You're seeing like all those shockwaves happen and it's silent. And then the thunder booms only after Izuku has spun like what, 8 times and is coming back towards Shigaraki. Now, one thing worth pointing out here is that you have a sound effect. So it would be, I wonder how the anime is going to do this. It's pretty much Izuku rolls. As he's rolling, the smash is booming. And then you hear another boom from Izuku coming towards Shigaraki. Okay, you know what? That's the read. That's how you read this. That's actually very interesting. Good on you, Horikoshi. I can't wait to see how the anime like makes sense of that. Actually, I don't think the anime is going to be able to do it. I think I'm going to assume the anime is going to fail on that one, because this requires a little bit more effort. We'll have to see. I feel like if they're like overworked, they're not going to do it. Now, on page 6, we have a really good analysis from Shigaraki telling us, okay, he didn't have the glow built up, so that meant that when he did the quintuple smash, there was no Fajin on it. That was really good. Shigaraki really appreciated that. This is one of those spots where having Shigaraki actually talk to us about what's going on helps make more sense of the situation. In the bottom page 6, we have, perhaps it's too fast to perceive, but based on trajectory of that last hit, I can surmise the angle and timing of the next one and know where. Okay, so what you're saying, what you have to understand here is that Shigaraki accurately predicted where Izuku was going to be based on his current speed when he saw him, right? That's why him missing is such a big deal, and that's the thing that makes low gear a little bit more scary, because Izuku should have decelerated and had like if for the guys that know how to drive, you know that there's stopping distance, right? Izuku's stopping distance should have still carried him to Shigaraki, but because of low gear, applying the speed directly, going from 100 to 20, for example, you have the situation where Shigaraki just full on misses. Now, one of the cool things about page 7 is that you have Izuku using the gear shift again, but you also have danger sense. So it's nice that Horikoshi is still using the danger sense mechanic here. And honestly, good on him for like all the special effects that he's using, because it's helping us kind of figure out when powers are being used. So good on him for that. He's very good at explaining, like at least suggesting when powers are coming up. We go into page 8. Page 8 is pretty much just like, let me use all my powers together to like really show that we're all working together to do this. One of the hardest things I think is really being able to use float and give float meaning. I still think float is one of the hardest ones to use because like when you're Izuku, you can just pull Shigaraki moves and blast off with just the force of your kicks. But there's a lot of cool things going on here. So first, you gotta see like Smokescreen. The reason Smokescreen works in this situation, and this is very clever on Horikoshi, but it does take away from Shigaraki a little bit, is that Shigaraki does not have enhanced senses. Yes, this is a man that can produce a mouth that is able to extract all the poison that just got into his system and like physically eject it. Yes, this man can do that, but his eyes have not evolved to let him see infrared. His eyes aren't like that. Nah, man. His eyes don't let him see through walls. His ears aren't as good as a dog's. No, the man still has human faculties, which makes this whole thing about like the perfectly evolved body like a little bit more dubious. It's pretty much just like the guy's very good at creating more parts. In a way, he's kind of like Shoji. But anyway, Smokescreen works because he has no extrasensory capabilities and the evolution isn't giving him that. And let's see, anything else here? No, Smokescreen is the most valuable thing here. You have Izuku pointing out that he got a Fajin recharge from the Quintuple Smash, so that's really good. And then you have them all coming back in. This whole segment is just pretty much the author saying like, hey, look, this is how Izuku can use all his powers. And again, I do have to like really impress this on you guys. This is a lot of work on Horikoshi's part to be able to justify what all these strange powers are doing together. Requires so much control because like some of these powers are so weak. Like it just requires, like the reason he explains all this is because he's putting in effort here. He really wants to make sure everyone understands that these powers are all useful, even though like Izuku just with second user, third user, and regular one for all power, like Izuku's wrecking the meta, but he's making use of all his powers all together, which is very worthwhile. And like the fact that Horikoshi is going out of the way to like show how they can all be used together, even though like at some points it's just like, you know, Float's instant height is like, well, Izuku, you have the power of a god, you can just jump that high, right? But it's appreciated. Now we go into page 9. And we already kind of talked about this page. It's a really cool page. Also, the art was really good. Yeah, it's a cool page. We already talked about it. The whole "this is why people call them quirks" thing. We go into page 10, and we have a cool like assortment of stuff. Just Banjo's words to Izuku, Shigaraki freaking out. The most important thing on page 10 is obviously the updates on the characters. We see Bakugo's body still kind of vibrating. Best Genius is next to him. We have Edgeshot in there. We have Mirio pulling Nejire away. And then the most amazing panel here. We have Mirko standing up, and she pulled Sun Eater away from the carnage. This woman is standing up on a single leg. She pulled the student out of the way, and she's standing up. Alright? The poor guy, Sun Eater has probably evacuated his bowels by now, alright? There's no way he's holding on to all those bugs he ate. Like, he was holding on to his stomach last time. It's over for him. He's out. But Mirko is still there. Alright. Good on her. Alright? Wow. That's amazing. She's there's been a very consistent story with Mirko here. She started on top of a tree, she slid down to the bottom of a tree, and now she's leaning against a wall after doing a quick save for Sun Eater. Yeah, no, man. Whole other level for that girl. Anyway, page 11. Izuku tells All For One he doesn't get to hurt anyone else. Now, when I saw this page, I thought, like, this is a little bit brutal. Because, like, what Izuku's relying on here is that Shigaraki's not going to die from an otherwise fatal wound. That is brutal. The only reason a hole gets blown open in Shigaraki is because the guy can survive it. That's the only reason you're seeing this kind of thing. Now we go into page 12, and we have another interesting page. We have a little translation thing from Viz Media as well. First, we get told that One For All and All For One are resonating, and that's justification for why they can see what's going on. Just to make sure we're clear, these bottom panels are them looking into the inner state of One For All, of All For One, and they're seeing All For One, like pretty much, he's being eviscerated from the inside out. We all know it's Tenko coming out of there, but right now, remember, when we last saw this situation after Star and Stripe, Shigaraki and All For One were still both outside the body. But now we have a situation where Tenko is coming out. But the thing is, Tenko is coming out with Shigaraki here. So I think what's happened is there are still 3 people involved here, but the Shigaraki and the Tenko parts have merged, and they're coming out again. So we need to see where this goes right now. But right now, it's no longer 3 people. It's just Shigaraki and All for One. Because like there's at the end of the day, there's only 2 ego states that are visible to us right now. Now, other thing to keep in mind is that the last time the All for One and One for All resonated, One for All got a major power boost. Those ghosts got to start talking to each other in their one little meeting room, like their little All for One victim support group, right? So what you have to be ready for here is that they might have accidentally have powered up All for One, because like the author can do that because the power that framework's already been established. Now, a funny bit here was the young man with the bean eyes was correct. I'm pretty sure in the fan translation, this line was originally the young man with the round eyes, and I wonder if round eyes was removed because of the connotations with that term. But whatever, bean eyes. And I like that they had to call him, they had to like specify bean-eyed young man. That's pretty funny. Anyway, balance is shaken. We go into page 13, which made a commenter, White Despair, like kind of wonder about this thing. It's the second user saying, hey, here comes your moment, boy. Don't forget what Shimura said. You can't take it easy just yet. So I think what he's referring to here is specifically a situation where it involved Nana saying, like, some people, there's no other choice but to kill them kind of thing. So I think he's referring to that, and when he says you can't take it easy just yet, it's just remember, some people require a lot of effort before they go down. I think that's what ultimately is being said here. It's that you can't give up here because this guy's going to keep going. It's what I think, because I can't remember any other conversation with Nana. But if you guys know conversation with Nana, let me know down below. Okay. Then we go into my favorite part where All for One starts pointing out that, yeah, you guys made this really hard for me. Like, you guys actually are planning on winning. Like, you made this whole thing to limit me. It's not fair. I haven't even gone to show off all my powers. Like, All for One is the guy on the playground who has all the cool toys, and he wants to show them off. And he wants to see him showing them off, and he wants to sneer at you, He wants to smile like, I got the toys, you don't. I'm pretty cool, aren't I, guys? But he doesn't understand that showing off your toys is not what makes you friends on the playground. Showing off your toys and letting the other people play with your toys, that's what makes friends on the playground, alright? No one likes to show off, but All for One doesn't fully understand that. Anyway, on page 13, what you gotta take away is that Aizawa is being noted as a target. The tomb that is Yue was recognized as valuable, and that just pretty much says that we have to be looking toward the future at this guy potentially being able to target Aizawa. Now we go into page 14 and 15 where it's a strange sequence of events. We see 9 lights. Now I personally believe that 9 lights is supposed to match Izuku, but Izuku's included in the 9 lights in his own system. But I assume it's like 9 lights there. I have many ideas. I would love if we go down the Kingdom Hearts route of having many Xehanorts. I mean, like, All for One Norts in other people's bodies. That would be pretty cool. Right now, what I would assume is happening is that Shigaraki just had a freak out. His hair got like kind of weird. He's yelling, and right now, people with fragments of All for One are resonating, and maybe they're gonna get like a second wind here and like start doing more work. Spinner is gigantic and buff. He most likely has a quirk that is doing that to him. Probably also like took some drugs. But right now for me, I really think if All for One's going to win, he kind of needs to get Kurogiri out of there, because Kurogiri is the only one that can regroup. Unless this is a call to all those other villains to come towards his location, I really think they have to go for the Kurogiri regroup. I think one of the best things to do here, because Spinner needs to be taken down by Shoji or something. I don't know how that's going to work because Spinner's been made insane, but Shoji needs to be able to do that. So you need to have a storyline with Shoji getting some kind of victory, but the villains ultimately need Kurogiri out of there. And you need Kurogiri out of there so that you can get a Shirakumo moment later. So Kurogiri probably gets out of this place. We just don't know how. I think one of the best ways to do it is have Spinner lose the fight, but have one of his people win the war, in a sense. But yeah, like, when it comes to the 9 lights, I have to think that, that's just All for One like calling out to his buddies out there in the world. Who the 9 lights are is going to be a big question mark. One more thing is that you can see Shigaraki's body here. Like, the way that this tissue is colored makes it look like he kind of regrew tissue, which he really should be doing, because like this is like the value of having a perfect body. But like the way it's drawn, to me it looks like he expanded his muscle tissue out and he closed the hole with different parts of muscle. Like he's like tightening it together and closing the hole by doing a tightening, not actually regrowing tissue, which is very interesting. Honestly, he should be growing a new pair of lungs in there as well. He should be growing a diaphragm. He can do it. Like the fact that he can grow like a mouth on his arm suggests that he should be able to grow new pairs of organs. He was able to grow an eye for like Tenko to like appear or whatever. So it's just like the regeneration part is like one of the worst parts here, because like the regeneration is like Shigaraki should be regenerating. He should be regenerating just because he has a perfect body. It doesn't matter about quirks anymore. He has a perfect body. So like, but at the same time, like the reason that, you know, you don't have the regeneration being strong is because you need to give the heroes a shot here. But yeah, when it comes to this regen, remember, it's most likely not super regen the quirk. It's most likely scientific augmentation that is regrowing everything. And like I would say, given that Shigaraki still has a damaged face, the regrow or the regeneration only happens when it's a critical wound. I think that's like the most critical thing you can say here. But honestly, the regeneration aspect of this whole fight has been probably one of the logically worst. But you understand why it happens, because the heroes will have no chance otherwise. And like you can make up excuses for it, which is like the good thing. You can always say like, oh yeah, it's a low acting regeneration that only covers up fatal wounds. That's why it hasn't fixed Shigaraki's face. Anyway, I got nothing else to say. Overall, I think it was a very strong chapter. In terms of the technical stuff, like I'm not going to take away points for the regeneration problem, because the regeneration problem has been, like the whole fight has been kind of revolving around this regeneration issue. So like there's no point in taking points off for something that's continuing. No, in terms of technicality, I think it's a strong chapter. Like the few points where it's a little bit iffy, like Horikoshi gets a pass because he's doing bare minimum. Not even bare minimum. He's doing like he's trying to do his best to explain how this works, and it just requires a few inferences to get on the same page as him. The whole situation with the translation, that's not a Horikoshi problem, that's a translation problem. It's not even a real problem. You can kind of just expand your thoughts and you'll be able to like see the full meaning there. Yeah, no, I have no problems with the technicality of the chapter. In terms of personal enjoyment, it's an 11 out of 10 for me. I love chapters that we can talk about science. And what else? And yeah, personal enjoyment, I really enjoy that issue with quirks and individualities. In terms of the Dobby factor, well, actually, you know, this week, yeah, no, there's some good Dobby points. Like All For One was being made fun of like crazy. 100% when All For One's whining about not being able to use his new toys, like 100%. This has a pretty good Dobby rating of like 3, and the Dobby rating is about like characters who are just fun to make fun of, right? Yeah, no. Like personally, I don't really rag on him too much. That's why it's going to be at a 3. So yeah, it's like there's a Dobby rating of 3 here. Not the best, not the best situation to rag on for me personally. But maybe next week, if we see All For One saying stupid stuff next week, then that Dobby rating is going to go up. Actually, no, we're dealing with Spinner, so we might not. Oh, I should say that with the 9 lights, we should be going to many other battlefields now. This would be like a really good transition. The question is, are we going to stick in the battlefields for any long periods of time? Okay, so that's, oh, outrage. Was there any outrage this week? I don't think so. The guys didn't tell me about any outrage, so I am not going to say that there was any outrage this week, so it was a pretty boring week. Anyway, a good, like, perfect technical, above average, or like beyond 10 for my personal enjoyment. Dobby rating of 3 because All For One's a joke. And yeah, guys, let me know what you thought down below. And until next time, I hope you have an absolutely great day.